see the meeting, but I can't hear it. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
I'll get on another computer. I'll be right back.
You can't hear it, okay. Good morning, everybody. It's March 22nd, and this is the Monday Transportation Planning Environment Committee meeting. We're meeting a little bit earlier than usual, so hopefully everybody is tuned in. We have two items on our agenda this morning, just for informational purposes. One is input on the 2040 vision plan. Staff will give us some of the feedback that they have heard, and the second one is, the first one is the Center City 2040 vision plan, lots of vision plans. Michael Smith from Center City Partners will be giving an update on the 2040 vision plan process with ideas and recommendations. And then Taiwo and Alicia will be giving us an update on our 2040 comprehensive plan with some feedback on some of the comments. So before we do that, we're going to have introductions. I'm Julie Eisel, Mayor Pro Tem and Committee Chair, and would the other committee members please introduce themselves?
Larkin Eggleston, Committee Vice Chair.
Braxton Winston at large and serving as committee member.
Matt Newton, committee member.
And we know Mr. Driggs will be back on in a minute when he figures out his technical issues there. So with that, could we have staff introductions?
Good morning, Taiwo Java, Planning Director, Assistant City Manager.
Good morning, Donata Jackson, Office of Constituent Services.
Grant Miachi, Planning Department.
Alicia Osborne, Planning Department.
Allison Craig, Planning Department.
Liz Babson, Charlotte Department of Transportation.
Is that all, everybody's staff? If so, can we have introductions from our guests who are online? Michael, you want to introduce yourself and anybody else that's with you?
Yeah, I got muted again. This is Michael Smith, Charlotte Center City Partners.
And Cheryl Myers, Center City Partners.
Okay, did I leave anybody out? Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and just jump right into the presentation. Michael just introduced himself. Michael, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Great. Is Ty with us or no?
Yes, I am here. So you want me to lead off and then hand off to you?
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you. So Mayor Pro Tem and council members, Center City as well as the city of Charlotte have actually been working together on this plan, All in 2040 plan, now for closer to 2 years, right about the same time as the city started its comprehensive plan, Charlotte Future 2040. Just to be aware, obviously, that the city is not only participating in this effort financially, but the city is also been participating in this effort with regards to engagement. So we've kind of been playing tag team on multiple engagement activities, both pre-COVID and during COVID. There's a lot of, the way we look at it is this, that while the comprehensive plan is the big picture citywide effort, the Center City plan is that focus or community area plan type of work for the Center City area. It's actually a model for how we like to see other community area plans that will come out of the comprehensive plan ultimately. We've been working closely together, Grant Miachi and Lorna Allen, as well as Alicia and Kathy have actually been working with both Cheryl Myers and Michael Smith at Center City. So some of the things that you will see in the presentation today you're familiar with, but they will relate to a lot of things that is really the future for our Center City. But we are also making sure that as we work on the comprehensive plan, there's a lot of connectivity between the comprehensive plan and this particular plan. So I've asked Michael to come and share with you today, just give a snapshot, and then subsequent tab will be more of a deep dive into the plan before council finally takes action at some point in the future. So today is really going to be more of a snapshot of what we've been working on together, and then there will be time for you to ask questions or seek points of clarification afterwards. Thank you. Michael, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Ty, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you. Good morning. Wendy, next. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today to give, as Ty described, really a brief update on where we are in the process, a sampling of some of the contents of the plan, and information on our path forward. You should have received a draft plan preview document. This is really a sampling of some of the recommendations of the ultimate draft plan that you'll receive later in the year. The Center City 2040 Vision Plan, this is a community strategic city building blueprint. We look ahead to the next 2 decades, and this is our rhythm, is we look 2 decades ahead, but every decade we do that again. So we're always looking 20 years out. This is an effort that's jointly run by the city, the county, and us at Center City Partners. This plan is a call to action for everyone. We have the opportunity to learn from the past and the extraordinary experiences of 2020 to do things differently in creating a new vision for our future. This plan could boldly transform the Center City through a commitment to equity, making sure that growth and opportunity are more sustainable and widely shared. It will drive the evolution of the urban core as a collection of distinct, vibrant neighborhoods, and it calls for big moves in transportation, improving mobility networks to support complete neighborhoods and further our community's commitment to sustainability. Next, please. So where are we in the process? So as you can see on this timeline, we are now producing the final plan document for you and the community to review. Next. I'm going to move quickly now through some highlights of what we've heard from the community. Next. From the beginning, we wanted to meet people where they were by attending community events and festivals across the county, making sure that we engaged with people from a variety of backgrounds and cultures. And this map shows the locations of all the engagement activities. Along with our partners and working with other planning efforts, we've hosted or attended 37 engagements, including pop-ups, workshops at other gatherings and cultural events across the county. We've met with representatives from 150 stakeholder and neighborhood groups, and we've heard over 1,000 ideas from the community. Next. So here's what we've heard, kind of looking at it in 3 areas. Some of the things that the community loves. They love the shared spirit of optimism. They love the growing commitment to transit, greenways, trails, and bike networks. And they love how we have increasing diversity of culture in our community. We also heard some things that we need to work on. There was a real concern about the over-reliance on automobiles, the lack of affordable housing and increasing cost of living, major barriers between neighborhoods. They want more connectivity, as well as a lack of essential services. But then we also heard some things that they would really like us to take advantage of and make more of a reality, like focusing on investment in underinvested neighborhoods and continuing to make transit upgrades and connections and becoming an international destination. Next. So with what we've heard, now I'm going to give you a sense of where we're headed in the process. Next. So over the next few months, over the past few months, we've been able to achieve several project milestones, including hosting our final steering committee meeting, great steering committee that's been involved in this process all the way through, an online public meeting where our consultant team presented some of the draft recommendations, and that was online, and almost 600 people either attended in person or viewed it subsequently. So what's next? After this plan preview with you today, we will update the planning committee again in early May. And then in mid-May, we will virtually distribute the final draft plan to the public with hard copies made available to you, as well as libraries and other locations. Then in mid-May, the consultants will present the draft plan in another online public meeting. And after that, we will have a public comment period. On May 24th, we will meet again. We will meet with you again. And that time, we're going to do a really deep dive. I think we've got 2.5 hours held aside to really go deep. And then in mid-June, we'll do a deep dive also with the Planning Commission. And we'd love sometime this summer to be considering an adoption process. Next. All right, so the meat of it. Let me jump in. And now, as I've mentioned, let me give you some of the preview of the recommendations. Some of them are focus areas and some of them are strategies and tactics. So next slide. This is the study area, just to remind you. It is uptown and the surrounding neighborhoods. It's roughly a 2-mile radius from Trade and Tryon. Next. The plan is organized into a framework, and that's really the foundation on which we have organized the plan. This discipline allows us to make sure that what we heard from the community ends up in recommendations. The framework includes high-level vision, our high-level goals, and focus areas in which are places in the center city where we'll be able to implement some of the recommendations of the plan. Next slide. So there's 8 goals, and these goals describe what we need to achieve to make the vision become a reality. They're based on what we heard from the community and what they said is important to them, the center city they aspire to have. These are aligned with the comprehensive plan, which you'll talk about later today. Next slide, please. So, strategies for change. The plan includes over 200 strategies and recommendations tied to each of these goals. These are specific policies, projects, and programs that will help us achieve the vision and goals. Next. So looking at these 8, I'm going to dig in a little bit on a couple of them and give you 2 examples. So next slide. The first being goal number 1, easy, accessible mobility. Our city is doing an incredible job on building out a transit system. And I'm even more excited about what CDOT's doing with the strategic mobility plan. The Center City Vision Plan supports these efforts with this goal. To do this, it's critical that we continue to invest in our regional multimodal transit network. One of the most important goals in the 2020 Vision Plan was creating this city of bikes. And we're well on our way to achieving that through the expanded bike share system, protected bike lanes, all the connectivity we're doing with the Cross Charlotte Trail. So now we should continue to work with CATS to become a city of buses, which is the quickest way to build a more complete transit system and to achieve our sustainability goals. We also need to improve curb lane management to improve all transportation modes and get ready for the future. That includes having flexible street designs that support emerging mobility options like autonomous and electric vehicles. And we need to make uptown workhorse streets, think 3rd Street and 4th Street, safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. Next slide. We know that it's critical to improve access to opportunity for everyone. This requires continued economic growth and success so that we have the resources to achieve equity goals and to invest in our most vulnerable neighborhoods. For example, to achieve the goal of having a more inclusive economy, we could leverage our strong relationships with year-round paid internships, matching youth with uptown and center city corporations, small businesses, and organizations. A major objective would be to expose young people to a variety of possible careers. And that there are great internship programs out there, so one of our first tactics would be to use them as a source of learning. We also need to diversify our economy, ensure a balance of industries and jobs. we need to focus on business recruitment and economic development efforts on employers that provide all skill and wage levels from GED to PhD. We need to attract startups and expand firms to the North End, to the medical school and innovation campus, and to Center City Innovation and Employment Centers. You can see more about these strategies and recommendations in the draft plan review document. It starts on page 9. Next. So jumping into focus areas, and I know I'm moving quickly, but to do this in 20 minutes is tough. I'm going to run through all 12 of the focus areas, but it's going to be rapid fire. So the plan, vision, and goals are all achieved, can also be achieved through focus areas. These are areas that are ripe for new public or private investment and physical catalytic transformation. Next. Here's a quick map that looks at all the focus areas that are recommended in the plan. They're geographically dispersed across the center city. You'll notice many of them are outside of uptown. This is a nice change, a nice maturation of the way that we're planning for our center city. And it's acknowledging that some areas of the center city, they're going to require more investment. Next slide. So I'll dig a little deeper on the first 3. So one of those focus areas is the West Trade Beatties Ford Road corridor. A guiding principle for the center city is to invest in underinvested neighborhoods. And therefore, as development on West Trade takes shape, the gold line extends, and as it extends further north, it's important that the history, culture, and character of the West End are valued, protected, and preserved, and enhanced. Next slide. Building off the proximity to uptown, we could have similar to what we did on I-277 at Stonewall, working with US and NCDOT to consolidate that cloverleaf into a diamond exchange, creating more land. We could use this new public land to create denser, more walkable neighborhood in neighborhood center for the West End. We can leverage this major public infrastructure project to increase the amount of affordable housing on the site and directly invest revenue back into the West End. Next slide. The silver and blue line crossing. So if you've been to London, I think King's Cross and what happened there, this intersection is a monstrous opportunity for our community. Right now, the silver line is planned to go along 11th Street. On the slide, you will see the blue line with the 9th Street station kind of at the center of the image. Well, what if we could create this high-density, active mixed-use hub, a signature public place where these transit lines cross? Next slide. It might look something like this. We can leverage the light rail investment in publicly owned land, think county land too, to realize some of our goals around affordable housing. This could also be a real catalyst for bridging the gap between the central business district and our North End neighborhoods. Next. The Second Ward High School as a focus area. For many of our residents, there's justifiable undercurrent of mistrust based on the raising of the Second Ward High School and the surrounding Brooklyn neighborhood. In partnering with CMS, the private sector, and philanthropic organizations, we could restore this part of Brooklyn destroyed by urban renewal by fulfilling the promise to build a new Second Ward High School. Fulfilling this 50-year-old promise could be more than a symbolic gesture. A new magnet school can still be built on the CMS land that's still owned by them in conjunction with the planned Brooklyn Village mixed development. This school could include a work-study curriculum like Northeastern and Johnson and Wales universities have that leverages our uptown corporations and civic participation to provide students with exposure to real-world experiences. Maybe we could even have some on-site housing for high schoolers from more challenging home situations, like you might see at the North Carolina Science and Math in Durham. Now is the time for us to do this. This recommendation has been in the last two plans, the 2010 and the 2020. Tryon Street, next slide. The Tryon Street update, close out the dogs in the neighborhood. Tryon Street is the birthplace and heart of Charmek. It is the region's main street and our civic gathering place. The last time this street was reimagined was 1985. So now is the time to produce a new plan to reimagine Tryon Street that reflects the diversity of our cultures today and for tomorrow's Charlotte. And it will take a comprehensive, broad community engagement effort to create this amazing, welcoming place for all. Next slide. Brevard Street. We could transform Brevard Street into this authentic, lively Charlotte visitor destination that connects some of the city's biggest assets, embodies and celebrates the area's history as the main commercial area of the Brooklyn neighborhood. Next slide. The government district. What if we were to infuse new life and energy into this government district, making it a mixed-use environment, adding high-density mix of uses with active ground floors, restaurants, shops, and services. Next slide. Our North End neighborhoods. The future of the North End industrial area and neighborhoods has the potential to serve as this economic development backbone of the city. A community-driven planning process for the North End is needed to implement strategies to catalyze development, create jobs, and create a great place to live. One of the elements in this next slide is the Queens Park. Sorry, I did not need to jump ahead. Back one, thank you. Queens Park, there's this grassroots effort that's going on that has embraced the idea of transforming the old Norfolk Southern rail yard into this signature public space they're calling Queens Park. Consolidating and relocating the freight activity of this 100-acre rail yard would open up the land for us to re-envision and redevelop it into one of the largest, most unique places in the region. While this might be a longer horizon, we've got to take the first step. Imagine how powerful Piedmont Park is to Atlanta and Millennium Park to Chicago. Next slide. The South End Uptown Gateway. Over the last decade, the Central Business District has significantly expanded from Uptown into South End, which has become this entertainment shopping destination and one of the hottest office submarkets in the Southeast. A capping over I-277, which has been a recommendation in Center City Plan since the late 90s, would help us overcome the barrier, bringing these two incredible neighborhoods and job centers together. This might seem like a pipe dream, but there are other cities that are in our peer set that have been able to do this quite well. Columbus, Ohio, Dallas, Boston, Atlanta, Seattle have all done projects like this. Next slide. Cedar Yards Pipe and Foundry, the Center City's next great urban neighborhood. It's the Third Ward Cedar Yard Pipe and Foundry and the Bank of America Stadium area. It's adjacent to the Gateway Station District, and there's incredible potential to activate this neighborhood year-round by creating a mix of uses, new housing, entertainment destinations, well-designed streets, and a multimodal connectivity. This will enhance the area around the stadium so that it becomes better integrated into the fabric of the neighborhood. And lastly, in addition to, next slide, thank you. In addition to attracting talented students and physicians to the city, this new Atrium Wake Forest Medical School is going to increase our access to healthcare. It's going to provide tons and tons of jobs. Clinical research teams, more national labs money, bio-entrepreneurs, strengthening our healthcare industry and growing a new sector of our economy even further. This new mixed-use development should be designed to enhance the neighborhood and provide housing at all levels of income. Next slide. So to wrap up, if we were to accomplish this shared vision, can you imagine what our Center City would be in 20 years? We are working together today to build a city for our children and for generations to come. We have to make sure that we grow in a way so that people from all walks of life can thrive and prosper. So again, as a reminder, you'll receive a copy of the draft final plan in mid-May, giving you time to review it, and then we'll come back to you in late May for a deeper dive. I'm glad to answer any questions, and thank you.
Okay, if committee members want to just physically raise your hand, I can see you there if you have questions for Mr. Smith.
Mr. Weston has a question.
Just one comment that I had. Michael, it's always good to see and talk to you. Really appreciated what you mentioned in goal number 4 and your tie-ins to internships, paid internships. And really, I think it's the first time that I'm hearing Charlotte Center City Partners, well, maybe first time I'm remembering, really kind of putting a goal of creating an environment of education around and kind of in the framework of what you're working towards. I think this is something that is important for myself and my council colleagues to remember when taking on our policy work. It should be important for us to tie into this cultivation of an environment of learning. We have a responsibility to promote education in our entire community, which is obviously very different from the narrow K through 8 responsibility of CMS. So that's quite a task when you think about the roles that we do play in education. Let's just try to remember and find ways to embed that in our policy work moving forward. Thank you.
Council member, this is such a different plan than any we've done in the past, and I'm glad that this is something that you think we should focus on, and we'll take that back to the team.
Thank you. Mr. Driggs?
Thank you. Hold on. I'm juggling 2 different sound devices here, so I'm getting feedback. Michael, I was wondering how this overlays with the 2040 plan that we're working on.
Thank you. And I'm glad to have Taiwo. Now I'm getting an echo. Let me try to. Did that help at all? Is the echo going? Great. We are moving in lockstep, Councilman Driggs. From the beginning, Taiwo and I sat down and said, how do we make sure that this plan moves in lockstep? And as Taiwo mentioned, this is supposed to be one of those smaller areas of planning as is recommended in the comprehensive plan. We intentionally hired the same consulting firm so that all of what we heard from the community would inform both planning processes. We had great overlap and check-ins back and forth between the teams working on each of the plans. And it's one of those where you have to keep checking back in too, because these are such dynamic processes. Ty, anything you'd want to add?
Yes. Thank you, Councilmember Driggs, for that question. And thank you, Michael, for the answer. That's how we've envisioned this. At the beginning, obviously, Center City has had a tradition of having a plan like this for decades. And I believe MIG consultant worked on the previous one, as well as the North Tryon vision plan. So we have not had that as a city until we had a comprehensive plan. So when we started ours, and Michael and I sat down and we started looking at how this will work together, the way we see the relationship is that your comprehensive plan, the 2040 comprehensive plan, is the citywide bigger picture document, while the Center City plan is more detailed, hence the reason why Michael called out focus areas instead of place types. They're more focus areas because they're more detailed in terms of what you see. Good example, how silver line and blue line and gold line will interact how Silver Line and the Blue Line will interact at, is it Brookshire? I think things like that you will not necessarily find such detail in the comprehensive plan, but rather you will find policy framework. So we've been working together to make sure that this not only is done for Center City, but becomes a model for how other community area plans are done in the future coming out of the comprehensive plan. So that's essentially what defines the relationship there. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be a city document upon adoption by the city, just like other plans that will be coming forward in the future. Thank you.
So thanks, that helps. And I was interested to look upon this as kind of an illustration of what we might expect from the 2040 plan, because the 2040 plan, as you say, does talk more like general policies. Now we have kind of examples of what the implementation might look like. My other question, though, was all of the things, Michael, that you described imply a huge amount of public and private investment. Have you done any work to analyze kind of economic impact or try to kind of figure out how that might be realized?
Thank you, Councilman Driggs. We've hired a firm called EPS that are economists and a bit of futurists. And I know that they've also been of counsel for the comprehensive plan. And they provided for us a look at what our growth could be over the next 2 decades. They provided some great competitive analysis of some of our competitive and peer cities and allowed us to think about the way that we should be growing in order to continue to grow jobs, to continue to grow our tax base, and to think about the kind of infrastructure it'll require for us to be that city we aspire and that our citizens aspire for us to become. As far as, these vision plans,
Did we lose Michael?
I think so. Briefly, hold on just a second. Michael, if you can hear me, turn your camera off. We believe if you turn your camera off, then it will help you just have audio.
While we're waiting for Michael, if other committee members have comments that Ty can address, maybe we do that. I have one in particular that with regard to the Silver Blue Line crossing, I still really have a hard time with that concept that those two stops will be a block and a half apart. Ty, maybe you can talk about that, but that development, to Mr. Driggs' point, really depends on private sector dollars and investment. And it just, we're making this permanent decision. And I just don't see people coming into the airport wanting to walk a block and a half with their suitcases to change lines. So I guess it's more of a statement than a question, but I'm still kind of very much troubled by that. The fact that the silver and the blue line don't cross at a stop.
Yes, you know the word Center City Plan has in this All-in 2040 plan is a reflection of where CATS is today with regards to that crossing. Now, it's possible, obviously, once all the analysis comes in and we decide where this is going, that could be amended in the plan. Again, this is going to be a different way of doing things, and so it's not like that plan could not be amended subsequent to what eventually CATS decides to do, or works for the community, so to speak, or what council adopts as to where that line should connect. But right now, as of today, that's where it is, right? And so the plan just pretty much incorporated that CATS conversation with regards to blue line, silver line crossing. That could change, and if that changes, that will be reflected in the plan at that point in time. It could be as an addendum or something like that, but you know, there's a lot of work that's gone into it on CAT's end, which really transferred into this, and then you have to start talking about how do you place make that area if that indeed comes to pass. But I think again, it's going to be a moving target. And so we'll reflect what this council will eventually reflect what council finally decides.
Okay, and to that end, there have been some requests from public stakeholders that because we aren't going to do a referendum this year, that we take the time and have an independent study to get that right. So I hope that, we're going to use this time and really make sure that this investment, which isn't movable, are going to get right. And I guess Michael's back.
I am back. So sorry.
No problem. Welcome back.
Feels like when cell phones first came out. Can you hear me?
Your dial-up failed, huh?
Yeah.
We were on.
Yeah, I was answering Councilman Drake's question about economic impact analysis, and with these vision plans, what we'll often do is it'll make a recommendation to study something further. And normally inside of whether it's a vision plan for the North End or something specific around, something as bold as a cap over 277, and study that specifically and dig deeper at that level. I hope that answers your question.
Are you good with that, Mr. Driggs? Okay. We've lost his audio, but he says okay. Mr. Eggleston, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. One, I'll just second the Mayor Pro Tem's concerns that we're really going to do ourselves a disservice if we have two light rail lines that don't have a shared station but require a 1 or 2 block walk to get from one station to the other. So I do hope that we continue to consider that in whatever our options are there. But my question for Michael is, based on the focus areas that you've outlined in this presentation, does this consider or contemplate Center City Partners expanding the geographic footprint of their municipal service district?
Councilman Eggleston, it does not. This is not intended to be Center City Partners' plan, but the community's plan. There's been studies in the past around areas like the North End. There was a TAP done a number of years ago that suggested creating a municipal service district to the north. There has been interest in lower South End of creating a municipal service district. We're glad to have any of those conversations if that would be of service to take that consideration back to our board. They've got a standing policy on how to evaluate service expansion.
Thank you.
And I'd be glad to talk with you one-on-one further about it if you got more interested.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, Michael. First of all, it's really an exciting plan. I realize that a lot of it is aspirational, a lot of it involves, depends upon the corporate sector's commitment, but there's just so much momentum behind wanting to see a more inclusive vision for Uptown Charlotte, a more dynamic vision. Sorry to see the river wasn't there for 277, but there's other really exciting things in it. So what I'm kind of hearing overall is this theme of the corporate plus civic engagement on this public-private. To Mr. Driggs' point, there is a sort of a dependency on that notion. And three things kind of jumped out at me on this. One, city of buses. I love that. I've been, as some of you know, a big fan of investing in our bus system first to change the culture of people using public transportation. I would love to see Center City Partners really work with their members, their partners on Uptown companies giving their employees all transit passes, and just making that something that anybody who works uptown, their employer gives them one of those passes as part of the deal. Secondly, inclusion. Another area of opportunity is we talk about the arts and growing our arts sector is, I'd love to see an intersection with the corporations and the museums. 4 of the museums have come up with a plan to make their 4 institutions free every day for people. And I think that, that does a lot. Inclusion isn't just about working uptown. It's about people having a reason to come uptown and feel welcomed uptown. So that might be even something that Center City Partners could connect their members with those institutions. I think the price tag is $800,000 a year to make all 4 of those museums free to everybody. And that would be a great thing to have a public-private partnership to accomplish the inclusion goal. And then the third area is, I couldn't help but notice where you said the medical campus is going and where the Second Ward High School is going. And wouldn't that be a fantastic partnership if that's going to be a magnet school, if the dream is for it to be a magnet school for science and technology, that those students could walk right over to that campus and get real life, on the job or internship type experience with the medical school. And I think, the medical school is dependent upon the cities and the community saying, we're all going to have to make some kind of an investment in some way. And I think a way that they could really give back is by connecting with the development and the realization of building that high school. So I hope we don't miss out on some of those opportunities to have the corporate sector, be involved in realizing this dream. And I hope we can hear that through this process. And then just lastly, I'd say that the TBD with the county commission, I hope that the counties and the schools are in this process a little bit earlier and they know about this, and we don't wait until the end when it comes close to adoption to get them involved and to get their feedback on it, because if you're talking about parks and green space, the county's got to have a say in that. If you're talking about the Second Ward High School and what could be, CMS does as well. So that would be my only comment on that piece of it. But overall, I think it's an exciting plan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Those are some new good ideas and connections, so thank you. And we will bring that back to the team. I hope that what you guys are so 21 that I got to keep opening and shutting the window to keep the neighborhood dogs out. That this plan has a deep commitment to, like each plan you walk away with the spirit of something. And this one, we believe it's about inclusivity, equity, DE&I, around this maturation of our neighborhoods that kind of make up the center city, the mosaic of it. And then also this deep commitment to transportation and its transformative power.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? Mr. Newton, did you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Great. Well, with that, thank you very much, Michael.
I just have one more comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
I
Mr.
just have
Winston.
one more comment. Both of you, Mr. Eggleston, talked about the intersections between the silver and the blue line. I don't think it is so important. I think it's less important that those two directly connect, and it's more so important that we create a pedestrian-centric connection between the two. If you look at cities and rail transportation, especially that connects airport lines, you do have sometimes significant walks. I think about the A train in New York City and the transfer points at Broadway Junction and Broadway Nassau, or just getting from Heathrow in London straight from the gates to the airport connection to the tubes. Those are significant walks, but there is an infrastructure that makes those walks very pedestrian centric, safe, and makes sense for folks to partake in those transportation uses. So, just in line with this goal one, I think if we think in from that perspective, we can think of more ideas and just don't get hung up on what isn't possible, and we can find more things that are possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winston. Okay, thank you very much, Michael. We look forward to the next update on this.
Always good to see you all. Thank you for the time today.
Bye. And I'll turn over to Taiwo for our next agenda item.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate the partnership between us. So we know tonight is the big night when you have the public hearing with regards to the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan. But what we wanted to do this morning is to spend a little bit of time sharing with you more process-wise. The first few slides that Alicia will share with you will just kind of go with you through sequentially how we got to where we are today, but there will be a few slides. And then the last two slides will really spend time on how the process for responding to comments and then what's next. You're going to be hearing from your constituents tonight, obviously. So this morning is not the time to share with you responses to comments because like we promised on March 1st when we came before you, we were going to wait until tonight after we've got all the comments. So far, we have over 500 comments on the plan, but we may get new ones tonight. We don't know. So we want to wait until after tonight before we start responding. But she's going to share with you the process for that and how that's going to play out. So Alicia, I'll turn this over to you to walk us through the rest, and then we will both tackle the questions afterwards. Our Deputy Planning Director, Alison Craig, is also online. And so between the three of us, if there are specific questions regarding process going forward, we'll be able to answer them. So Alicia?
Thanks, Taiwo, and thanks, Mayor Pro Tem and Council for the opportunity to share an update on the process. Again, as Taiwo mentioned tonight, we will hear from our residents, our business owners about the process. Again, just quickly, a reminder of some of the process where we are. The comp plan is a 4-phase process that started in 2018, really engaging our community around a broader vision for growth and development over time. Holding specific meetings in terms of workshops. We had a 400-member stakeholder group that served as a sounding board, a volunteer group that is still open to those who want to participate in that process as well. Phase 2, we did a growth scenario looking at how we grow and what are our priorities in terms of growth. As we develop a broader vision for growth and development, and then starting to formulate those priorities into policies and strategies and releasing a document in October of 2020 where the community has been reviewing and providing comments since then. We're right now in the phase 4 of that process where the community is reviewing the document and council and our elected and appointed officials. Next slide, please. Next slide. So again, we engage the community in over 40 different ways. Here is just a comprehensive list of those engagement tools that were used. particularly around after COVID-19, we started really engaging our community in the digital platform and also allowing, if they did not have digital access, that we provided those materials in print if they wanted to. But again, here are the 40 plus ways we engage Charlotteans throughout the process. Next slide. At each phase of the process, we documented all of that engagement. So no matter where you are in coming into the process, you could review and understand how we got to where we are today. So those engagement summaries are on our website for each phase of the project that talks about the methods, what we heard, and how they resulted into what you actually see into the document. So that community engagement summary for each phase is on our website and on our resources page. Next slide. One of the tools that we've been using since the beginning of this process has been listening sessions. We started these last summer, actually, and just really having smaller, intimate conversations with our community. Some folks aren't really comfortable with large venues and large crowds, and so we wanted to make sure that there's a safe space for them to share their ideas and what they wanted to make sure ended up in the plan, and just feedback on the plan. So to date, we've had over 280 comments to come out of those 15 sessions. And we kind of wrapped those up last week, but looking forward to doing some of those in the future at the request of our residents. Next slide. We also held some speaker series. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next. So we held speaker series as well, where we brought in some experts or some cohorts from around the country who have done a comprehensive plan. And many of those high-level changes or ideas that we had, they've done it in their community. So we're learning from them, kind of lessons learned, what to look out for, and how to make sure that the comp plan becomes a living document as we move forward in the process. Next slide. So here's how people can comment. They still can comment by calling us directly, as some folks have, sending us email, commenting directly on the plan, and also requesting a form to fill out and dialing 311 to leave their message to receive the comments. So as Tyrone mentioned, we have over 500 comments that staff is reviewing and categorizing by plan topic to make sure that as we present those to council and to our planning commissioners and to the community, that they can see the themes, because 500 comments individually are a lot to review, but we want to make it as easy as possible because there are some recurring themes in what we're hearing, but we want to make sure that we categorize them and share them in such a way. So all of those are on our website for the community to review, anyone to review, but moving forward, we will make sure that that the community sees those comments categorized and summarized into themes so it'll be easy to follow what the priorities are in terms of revisions and just grammatical or kind of technical changes to the document. Next slide. So here's a snapshot of what that might look like. Definitely capturing exactly what we've heard, how we receive that comment, and what the plan topic is, and then what is the resolution, whether it be something that requires a revision to the document, something that is already incorporated into the document, or something that will be handled by an outside action beyond the document. And then any notes or other actions will also be noted in that. What I wanted to emphasize on this one, again, Tyrone mentioned that tonight is a listening session for council, and we will be on the line making sure that we record and document those comments as part of the overall comment sheet. And then moving forward, provide some direction to council as to the decisions you could consider in terms of what revisions need to be made to the document. Staff will not decide what goes in the document at all. instead, we will categorize and make that information available because that is the decision of council and our planning commission to decide what revisions should and should not be made to the document moving forward. Next slide. So next steps in the process, we are public hearing tonight. The next couple of months, the next month or so, we'll be reviewing those comments to produce a second draft that will be for a public review similar to this particular draft, but in a way that makes sure that you can understand what the original document said and what is being proposed. So we're working on the format to make sure we're being transparent about that process as well. And then ultimately a council will make a decision about final plan adoption this spring or summer. At this time, I will take any questions or any discussion items you have.
Thank you, Alicia. And before we even do that, I think maybe some of us are confused because the public hearing's tonight, and there's really more opportunity to talk about this after the public hearing. But I just want to first of all make a comment as chair of the Transportation and Planning Committee, and I've been involved in this process for the whole 2+ years that it's been going on. It has been one of the most robust engagement activities ever undertaken by the city. I keep thinking back to even charrettes and games and things that happened 2 years ago that I keep remembering it on the comprehensive vision plan. And so I first of all wanted to say to staff, who I know this has been hard for, that I really do commend you for how hard you've worked on this. Perhaps what we're learning, though, is that the response side of it, we didn't allow enough time for. We didn't allow enough in the framework to be able to take the comments back and digest them and then come back with responses again. That's what we as council members are hearing, whether that's right or wrong. It's mostly been people's opportunity to question, debate, parts of the plan, parts of what they're hearing in the engagement. So that's something that we can move on from. It doesn't negate all the hard work that's gone on into this. It's just that now, we gotta get it right, and we have to respond to people's comments and to people's reactions. So it's like when somebody screams fire, right? Everybody runs and it's chaos, and that's kind of what happened on this. That's sort of human nature. But I just want to remind everybody, no matter what side you are on this initiative, that this is a once in a generation opportunity to put together a comprehensive vision plan, which is a blueprint, simply a blueprint. It's not the policy, but it's a blueprint for what our community will look like, so that there is predictability, so that people will know what they're investing in, and that we can change it, but we've got to figure out a way to move forward. It would be a travesty if we did not pass a comprehensive vision plan. I'm not saying the exact one that was presented to us, but let's all be positive and move forward and make sure that our constituents have been heard, and that we council members facilitate the responses that they need to have to be able to move forward with this plan. So I thank you for that. I don't know if committee members have questions at this point, or if we really want to just wait till after the public hearing on that. But I see Mr. Winston has a comment.
Thank you. Of course, yes, we will continue to deal with the comments, but now that the mayor has also said we're going to delay the vote, and we are going to kind of put the comp plan into committees to kind of suss through the process within our kind of committee recommendations, our committee responsibilities. I think it would be proper for us to start preparing for those conversations. Ty and Ms. Osborne, I think it could be helpful. One of the things I keep hearing both from my colleagues and constituents are this desire to understand better what the next steps of implementation could look like. Obviously, this committee will, every committee will have responsibilities moving forward, but this committee has significant work to do as it relates to implementing a comprehensive growth plan. So I'm wondering if maybe we don't start by cataloging the many policies and recommendations that are in this plan. Maybe we can bucket them, right? What are the transportation? What are the planning? What are the environment kind of recommendations? So that we can kind of talk amongst ourselves of what it might look like to put along a policy agenda of what that work will look like. And because we can, until we get there, I think we're kind of stuck in the mud about a bit of with a bit of this community conversation as to how we turn an idea into action. And I hope we can really kind of dive into that in our future committee work around this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winston. I have Mr. Newton next.
Yes, thank you. So I was just wondering if we have an update on what our deadlines look like here. I recall conflicting information pertaining to whether we had on the plan, whether we had a deadline in July, and then there was a conversation that I recall too as to if there is a deadline, what that deadline applies to. It was my understanding that the city attorney would be getting back to us on that. I didn't know if Ty, you or anyone else have any updates on what that the upcoming deadlines, what they might be, what they look like, what they entail.
Councilmember Newton, thank you for that question. I will let the city attorney respond to that directly. I don't think he is on. I don't think Terry is on, but I'm sure that that's a question that can be addressed tonight. But what I will say, though, is that when we started working on the comprehensive plan back in 2018, we were not driven by any deadline outside of the fact that we knew that the UDO had been going forward prior, and the timing for completing that at that time was 2019. But we paused that slightly so that we could move forward with a comprehensive plan and finish that before proceeding with the UDO and completing it. In the middle of that, I believe it was 2019, the NCGA came up with Section 160D, which eventually became effective in 2020. But that had no bearing on what we were doing because we had started our process way before then. While I know that Section 160D has come up in a number of times, it had no bearing on our timeline for the plan or our schedule. We just wanted to make sure that we call attention to that as a new thing that came up during the process. With the letter that Mayor Lyles sent out yesterday with regards to timeline for adoption and what happens in between, we are going to be sharing with you in a few weeks' time a text amendment that we will do to make sure that we comply with that Section 160D before July 1st. That's something that we can do. We believe that will be the easiest way for us to make sure that we're in compliance, while at the same time we continue to proceed with the work that started prior to that time. I'll let the city attorney speak further to that tonight, to you, but that's really my understanding at this point.
Okay. So we're having the hearing tonight, and that is in response to the first draft. I see that our next steps include a second draft. Do we know if there would be the need, or will we have a second hearing after the release of the second draft?
Another good question, Councilmember Newton. So right now we are not required to have a public hearing, but we know that it's important part of the process. Once Section 160D kicks off, I believe, on July 1st, we'll be required to have public hearing as part of a comprehensive plan going forward into the future. But right now, we are planning on one public hearing, which is tonight, and then subsequently, One of the limitations of public hearing, obviously, is that you are not able to respond while the public is speaking to you in a 2-minute time frame. But one of the advantages of having a second draft out is that it allows us a further engagement with our community, your constituents, to review the document within a time frame. And we will probably go through another set of listening sessions, like Alicia mentioned earlier, so that we can respond in lifetime. Some of the, we can respond really live we can respond to questions and clarify points. So that's the advantage. And then we will be taking this through different committees during that time as well. But we are having only one public hearing, and even after July 1st, it's only one will be required. And I believe that once we do this, we've complied.
I would agree with the Mayor Pro Tem that this is such an immensely important public policy document that's going to guide everything we do as a city for the next 20 years. I think just to make sure that we're covering all of our bases, personally, I think it would most likely be a good idea to have another hearing after a second draft, assuming the draft is different, of course, which I think is probably safe to assume. Before we make a final decision. But thank you so much for that, those updates, and thank you for an update on this timeline. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. And just to clarify the language, the document itself is not public policy. It provides guidance to public policy, which would be in the UDO. So, but to that point, there are pieces of it that we need to make sure are worded in such a way that does not completely lock us into public policy. But I don't see any other committee members with questions. So raise your hand because I can see you. Okay, I think we're good. All right, thank you, Tyrone and Alicia. We really appreciate your hard work on this. As you mentioned, it's in council members' hands now. So if we decide we want to have another public hearing, I think, we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that the public really feels like they've been heard and that we can respond to their concerns. So that's on us. So thank you all, and we'll see you tonight for the public hearing and for the council meeting. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Everybody click off their cameras unless you oppose. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.